Kia hiwara, kia hiwara. It's a call to action. Wallabies don't have a whakapapa in Aotearoa. Wallabies have never ever featured in our history in our kōrero. We have kōrero about tuna, about manu, about kai, about people, about battles, about land. We have no whakapapa to wallabies. Wallabies have no whakapapa to our lands. They alter the mauri, they alter the sense of vitality, the history, the whakapapa of our lands. They change it.
So we're at Kataraina, and these exclosures, these wallaby exclosures, were actually set up to look at the impacts of wallabies on native forest ecosystems. So you can see inside the exclosure how many plant species there are and just how dense it is, where we compare that with outside the wallaby exclosure, and you can see the forest understory is largely bare in most places. So in terms of our native forests, Dama wallabies eat a range of native seedlings, what we call palatable species, so that has major implications for the long-term dynamics of the forest ecosystem, and they're preventing those seedlings growing up to be saplings and eventually canopy trees. Because they are a localised distribution at the moment, people think it's just a local problem, but they are spreading, so it may be a local problem at the moment, but it's going to be a national problem in the future if we don't do anything about it.
Dama wallabies were first released near Lake Okaraka in 1912, and by 2007 it's estimated they inhabited over 180,000 hectares of the North Island. If left unchecked, wallabies could spread across 1/3 of New Zealand over the next 50 years.
5 years ago, 7 years, there weren't many up here. Today, where I stand now is indicative of the devastation and the impact that they're having on our land.
Out in Horohoro here, we're at the south, just south of Rotorua. At our nursery here, we're growing native trees, and we source the seeds from our native bush area. The plants that we grow here, it takes nearly 2 years for them to get to this size. And so if the wallabies do come across and eat them all, it's really a big waste of everyone's hard work. And it will then take another 2 or 3 years to replace those trees that get eaten. We've really been trying to work with both councils to make sure we can help stop them spreading further into the Waikato region, so we don't end up like around the lakes in the Bay of Plenty area where there's just wallabies everywhere in there.
It's quite hard to convince people that wallabies are a pest. I mean, they're quite cute and people see them as harmless. I mean, like a predator, a stoat, people see the impact of a predator. Whereas the impact of wallabies is a lot more slow and insidious. That damage to the native forest is going to take years to have an impact, but over time the forest is going to be less diverse and have less food for the birds and other native wildlife.
This is Raureti 15 forest, and I've been hunting in here for wallaby for the last 4 or 5 years. Here in the forestry, they'll feed out in the cutovers because of the grass, because they go for grass. When there's no grass, and they start attacking buds and little shrubs and that. When there's none of that, they start attacking the pines. So as you can see, this has been visited last night by a wallaby, and they've gone and chewed these nice buds. I've had a munch on those, and you can see the evidence just down here. I'd be worried if I was a farmer as well, because if wallabies start spreading and start feeding on farms, they're competing with sheep. And I've seen it in action where 150, maybe 200 wallaby just grazing. They're going to destroy everything if we don't get on top of them now.
It's really important to stop the spread because the impact that they have on our native forest mainly. We don't want to see that happening in the Mamaku towards the Waikato. We don't want to see it in the Kaimai range, and heaven forbid, we don't want to see it east of the Rangataiki River in Te Urewera.
We have to collaborate to stop the wallabies spreading into those areas. This is a land of richness, of history, of kōrero, of living, of being. If this land is healthy, we will be healthy. If they move through and we allow it to happen, we will lose our connection to the landscape we knew and grew up with.